canned cocktails, and more. Details at specs.com. Cheers to savings.
Crews wrapping up an accident over on the South Loop westbound near Broadway 45 area. That's why you're back towards 225. Hot today, mid-90s for the high. It's going to feel like 109, so don't forget about your pets. Definitely give them some shade, water, fan if you can. Dangerous heat here. Check on your neighbors as well. Tomorrow looks the same. Rain roll again Sunday going into next week. It's going to be a wet few days. 84 in Galveston. Same here at the University of Houston. Listen anywhere. We're streaming live online, our app, the website. Of course, we'll love to see you here on the radio as well. KUHF Houston News 88.7. The service of the University of Houston. Houston Matters starts right now. Stick around, 9 o'clock.
The head of Harris County's flood control district resigned Thursday amid pressure to address looming deadlines. I'm Craig Cohen. Today on Houston Matters, why she resigned and what it has to do with post-Harvey flood mitigation projects.
Houston Matters with Craig Cohen is a production of Houston Public Media with support from Baylor College of Medicine.
Also this hour, a pair of conversations about soccer and the World Cup. First, our Laura Walker talks with Nick Greene, author of How to Watch Soccer Like a Genius. Then we present an all-World Cup edition of The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Plus, what psychiatry and music composition may have in common. A local doctor and composer shares his perspective. Thanks for joining us on News 88.7. Remember to check out our live video feed on Houston Public Media's YouTube channel. We'll start with a news update from NPR and News 88.7. Stay with us.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Corva Coleman. The stock markets opened last hour in New York. Billionaire Elon Musk's SpaceX company has now started selling shares on the NASDAQ stock exchange, heard here. Stocks opened mixed this morning as SpaceX lifts off as a public company. NPR's Scott Horsley reports the Dow Jones Industrial Average climbed about 130 points in early trading.
SpaceX is looking to raise $75 billion by selling a small stake in the company to public investors. The funds would help to bankroll the company's space travel and artificial intelligence goals. Elon Musk will continue to control the vast majority of the company's shares, and the public offering will boost his already substantial fortune. Mortgage rates are inching higher. Freddie Mac says the average rate on a 30-year home loan is now just over 6.5%. Rates briefly dipped below 6% earlier this year, but bounced higher after the U.S. launched its war with Iran. Asian stocks rose sharply overnight. Scott Horsley, NPR News, Washington.
President Trump is floating a meeting with some top AI executives in coming days. NPR's Winsor Johnston says the president is expected to focus on ways the public can share in the wealth created by the tech industry.
As policyholders debate who should benefit from artificial intelligence, Cornell tech professor Helen Nissenbaum says it's important to remember what AI is built on.
We get sucked into the idea that the machines are creating rather than understanding that the machines are creating from what humans have created.
Nissenbaum argues that everyday Americans don't get compensated for AI using what it gleans from them. OpenAI has suggested a public wealth fund that could give all people a share of the AI profits, while Anthropic has called for policies to help workers benefit if the technology displaces jobs on a large scale. Winsor Johnston, NPR News, Washington.
The U.S. men's national soccer team plays its first game of the FIFA World Cup tonight in Los Angeles. NPR's Becky Sullivan reports.
U.S. soccer has been planning for this World Cup for a long, long time. After the Americans failed to qualify for the World Cup back in 2018, they cleaned house and a new staff brought in a whole new generation of young players to develop. The 2022 tournament was a first test for the young squad. They reached the round of 16. Now they're older. The core is in their prime and they're playing here at home. Here's midfielder Tyler Adams.
This is for me, the biggest opportunity to just really grow the game, to inspire people, to show that American players are at the level of the rest of the world.
Paraguay is the first of the team's 3 group stage matches. Next up will be Australia, then Turkey, then the team hopes a run in the knockout round. Becky Sullivan, NPR News, Los Angeles.
You're listening to NPR.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Bank of America, sponsor of the FIFA World Cup 2026, dedicated to offering solutions to help businesses win locally and globally. More at bankofamerica.com/gamechangers.
Live from News 88.7 in Houston, I'm Matt Harrop. Houston's World Cup Fan Festival will open at 12:30 this afternoon. Every match of the FIFA tournament will be live streamed from the free festival in East Downtown. The first match in Houston is this Sunday between Germany and Curacao. David Valdez stood in line for more than an hour yesterday to get in to watch Mexico beat South Africa.
The World Cup only comes around once every 4 years. And then to top it off, we have a game here in Houston. So this may never come around for maybe 40 years. So we have an excellent chance to bring the kids and for them to enjoy the World Cup.
The festival will be open for the entirety of the World Cup. Drinking water in the heat will be important. 2 people were hospitalized with heat stroke yesterday, and just under 24 others were treated on site for heat-related issues. There were more than 3,320 people sleeping on streets or in shelters in the Houston area as of January. That's according to figures just released by the Coalition for the Homeless of Houston and Harris County. Our Dominic Anthony Walsh reports the number has held steady even as the city ramps up efforts to address homelessness.
The 3,300 figure includes Harris, Fort Bend, and Montgomery counties, which have seen roughly the same population over the past 6 years, after a sharp decrease from more than 8,000 in 2011.
So that is essentially flat. But steady does not mean solved.
Renee Cavazos is vice president of the Coalition's Homeless Response System. Most homeless people were in Harris County, where the unsheltered population, sleeping on the street, ticked down slightly from more than 1,200 last year. Cavazos attributes that to an increase in shelter capacity, but she adds that's not always a silver bullet.
For some, going through that program and support can resolve homelessness, but for others, there needs to be a doorway to the next step.
The Coalition emphasizes policies to address homelessness before it begins, like affordable housing. I'm Dominic Anthony Walsh, News 88.7.
84 degrees right now here on the UH campus. We're set up for a high of 94 today. I'm Matt Harrop, News 88.7.
This is Houston Matters. I'm Craig Cohen. Good morning. Thanks for joining us here on News 88.7 and on Houston Public Media's YouTube channel. Coming up this hour, unique perspectives on soccer ahead of the first World Cup match here in Houston on Sunday. Our Laura Walker will talk with author Nick Greene, whose book is called How to Watch Soccer Like a Genius. Then we bring you an all-World Cup edition of The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. First, though, on Thursday, the head of Harris County's flood control agency resigned. Dr. Tita Peterson has submitted her resignation as director of the Harris County Flood Control District after introducing a framework plan she says would save several flood bond projects facing a looming federal funding deadline. Sarah Grunau covers Harris County for Houston Public Media and joins us now. Sarah, good morning.
Good morning, Craig.
First of all, what does the Harris County Flood Control District do exactly?
Yeah, the Flood Control District is essentially a Harris County agency that oversees the county's flood projects. They're basically responsible for carrying out a lot of those post-Hurricane Harvey flood projects.
And Peterson's resignation comes after she was grilled in Harris County Commissioner's Court last month over missed deadlines to complete some of the post-Harvey flood bond projects that have been in process. What projects are we talking about?
Yeah, voters approved a $2.5 billion bond after Hurricane Harvey that hoped to fund more than, I believe, 200 flood control projects across Harris County. But it was actually created with a pretty significant funding gap. So the county had to secure an additional $2 billion from state and federal funding sources to actually carry out many of those projects. Right now, there are 28 projects with funding deadlines coming up in 2027 and 2028.
At that meeting, Harris County Judge Lena Hidalgo had a notably heated exchange with Peterson over all of this. What did they each say then?
Yeah, Judge Hidalgo was blaming many of the delays with getting some of those flood bond projects moving on Tina Peterson, the now former executive director of the Flood Control District. That exchange basically happened when Hidalgo said that she requested from Peterson's office a detailed update on each of the delayed flood bond projects projects. But she said the information that she got back didn't include many of those details.
What would happen if these deadlines are in fact missed?
Harris County would essentially be on the hook to pay back about $245 million back to the federal government if they don't meet project deadlines that are coming up next year.
Is it clear why some of these projects have been delayed?
Yeah, so Peterson has told Commissioners Court pretty repeatedly, actually, that the delays on getting many of these projects moving is essentially outside of the control of the Flood Control District. She has said that the Texas GLO did not distribute many of the funds that they secured for the projects until 2023, which was already 5 years after the flood bond had been passed. She's also mentioned other things like inflationary cost and delays with construction as well.
Okay, you mentioned the GLO. This is the Texas General Land Office. And on Monday, Commissioner Dawn Buckingham from that office laid the program at Judge Hidalgo's feet, accusing her of creating setbacks through disagreements with the Flood Control District, and said Commissioner's Court created arbitrary procedures by compelling the district to address the court for minor changes. Does the evidence support that claim?
So Judge Hidalgo actually talked about this briefly during Commissioner's Court yesterday. She said that she wasn't aware that Commissioner's Court was necessarily creating any setbacks for the Flood Control District to carry out those projects. Tina Peterson also told Hidalgo that was not something that the Flood Control District expressed directly to the Texas GLO. There's no question, of course, that Judge Hidalgo has butted heads with Peterson on those projects in very public meetings. I'm just a little hard-pressed to say, that those exchanges actually caused delays on the projects.
Does Buckingham and the General Land Office have any say in these looming deadlines? Could they be extended?
It's a little harder to say whether the Texas GLO can truly grant an extension on those projects. These funds were actually provided by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development to the Texas GLO, and then the GLO allocated those funds to the Flood Control District through 2 different grants. A HUD spokesperson did tell me that the federal government won't be able to actually grant an extension for Harris County to use those funds ultimately.
What exactly did Peterson recommend in her framework before she resigned?
So the framework is essentially a phased approach that would enable the Flood Control District to meet all of their deadlines on those projects and also free up more than $120 million in the process. So within the flood bond, they have a couple different groups of projects. They've actually acknowledged, how complicated this whole program is. But the plan is to move about 6 disaster recovery projects to the flood mitigation category, which has a later deadline. So that'll enable the Flood Control District to ultimately maximize funding on the disaster relief program for other projects like improving their early flood warning system.
What did commissioners conclude about this framework coming from Peterson?
Yeah, commissioners ended up approving this plan before Peter's sudden resignation yesterday. But Commissioner Tom Ramsey said that this plan was created about 4 months ago, and he had hoped to see it come up sooner than it actually did.
Despite this clear tension between Peterson and Judge Hidalgo, what has Commissioners Court generally said about Peterson and about her work?
Yeah, they've really talked about how they're impressed by the work that Peterson has completed, especially on the flood bond project. There are issues, of course, with using federal funding, to keep those projects moving, but they have expressed, that she's done essentially a pretty good job with it.
What did Peterson have to say in her resignation letter?
Yeah, she actually expressed gratitude for the opportunity to serve Commissioners Court and said that she plans to continue to be available to serve the county, to implement a transition plan. She said while she's confident in the organization and the work that they have underway, it's clear that conversations about her role have become a distraction in the process.
What options does the county have going forward beyond the framework that they approved Thursday to ensure that these projects move forward, they meet deadlines, and there's not a lot of money to pay back?
Yeah, Commissioner's Court is expected to take up discussions about next steps for the position in their next Commissioner's Court meeting on June 25th. They haven't talked yet about who could replace Peterson, but I talked to Judge Hidalgo yesterday during the lunch hour of Commissioner's Court, and she told me that they do have someone in mind to ultimately replace Peterson.
What aside from that are the most urgent questions the county needs to answer in this, what I imagine will be a bit of a transition period?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest questions, not just for Commissioner's Court, but also for their constituents in this whole process is how exactly the flood control district will actually keep those projects moving and stay within this new framework lined out by Peterson, who won't be there anymore to actually ensure that the plan is carried out to secure all of that federal funding. So the next director will be in charge of actually staying on top of those projects in a pretty timely manner.
Peterson was the first woman to lead the district in its 89-year history. Beyond the politics of her departure, what did she accomplish in the role?
Yeah, in her resignation letter yesterday, she actually recognized a lot of the accomplishments of the flood control district under her leadership. A big accomplishment during Peterson's role was establishing pretty close ties with state and federal delegations to be able to secure more partnerships and grant funds for the district. Another accomplishment that Peterson acknowledged in her letter was the work that they've completed on the flood bond project and the new solution that she's created to really address questions brought up by commissioners about those deadlines.
Sarah Grunau covers Harris County for Houston Public Media. Sarah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Up next, as the World Cup gets rolling, we consider how a simple sport like soccer can also be complex. Stay with us as Houston Matters continues on News 88.7 and YouTube.
I'm Ernie Manu.
You count on Houston Public Media. That's why you're here right now. Take the next step and become a new member today. Every gift makes a difference. And with a gift of $5 a month or more, you'll receive PBS Passport, a member benefit that lets you stream more of the shows you love anytime. It only takes a minute to make a big difference. Join as a new member today at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate or call 800-364-8300.
Comes from listeners like you and from Baylor College of Medicine. Baylor's work centers on advancing health and medicine through research, education, and patient care.
Support comes from Metro. World Cup planning includes transit improvements intended to serve Houston after the final match. Metro provides bus, rail, and paratransit service and continues mobility enhancements across the region. More at ridemetro.org/Metro Now.
This is Houston Matters. I'm Craig Cohen. Okay, the Fan Fest's getting underway. The first World Cup match here is Sunday. We are all hyped and ready to watch this soccer tournament. And as we watch, we will hear about players and coaches, strategies and stats. But there are perspectives about the sport that you might not have thought about, which author Nick Greene delves into in his book, How to Watch Soccer Like a Genius. He examines the game through the eyes of scientists, artists, historians, even anthropologists. Greene tells Houston Matters producer Laura Walker how there can be complexity in what still is a very much simple game.
Soccer is the world's most popular sport because it is so simple. The bar to access is very low. It only takes you, some friends or enemies, a ball, and you don't even need 2 goals. When I was a kid, we just put backpacks as the goalposts. All the complexity I referred to, so much of it is from the players themselves, coaches and tacticians who have sort of developed the game that started out as simple but has become more and more baroque in a way. And I think for people who are interested in soccer, the World Cup coming up is a great place to start. And watching the games, not just looking at the person who has the ball, but the people around them. Where they're running, when they're running, what kind of shapes are naturally emerging from passing patterns, how a team will look when they have the ball versus when they don't have the ball. It's such an expansive game. The field is huge, and each team only has 10 outfield players, so not including the goalie. Everything is done for a reason on the pitch, and you can see so much going on if you just sort of sit back and let the game wash over you and enjoy the fluidity of everything.
Exactly. And your book is really interesting because it pulls in perspectives from scientists, artists, and even anthropologists. What's one way of watching a soccer game that would instantly make it more interesting, even for someone who doesn't know the rules?
The grass, there's a tremendous amount of effort to make the grass of these fields as perfect as possible. At the World Cup and other high-level soccer, they demand that it's actual real grass, not turf. And the height is specified to a specific length, sometimes around 23 millimeters. And in the book, I have a whole chapter on grass because it's something I started to look into, and I realized, oh gosh, this is crazy. I spoke with someone who was in charge of getting grass and supplying the grass for the Qatar 2022 World Cup. And as you probably know, Qatar is a nation without rivers, almost no rainfall, and yet they had a full World Cup with huge fields of beautiful, perfect grass. And that's because that grass was grown in Georgia, south of Atlanta, and thousands and thousands of pounds of it was shipped to Qatar, where it was replanted, and they did things like blast it with outdoor air conditioning. They had special built kind of massive greenhouses almost to keep this grass healthy just for 4 to 5 weeks. And with this World Cup, a very similar amount of effort is sort of involved in making the grass perfect, because all these stadiums don't necessarily have or could have real grass. And so they've invented all new ways to do that. It's this cutting edge, expensive technology, and it's something that is for really the biggest reason besides, grass is safer on players' knees and ligaments and things like that, is just because it looks good. It just looks better than artificial turf. And that's the kind of thing where it's a simple game, but people go to crazy lengths just to fine tune it and make it as perfect as possible.
What should fans here in Houston kind of be noticing about that grass when they walk in the stadium?
Yeah, take a good look, because it's probably never going to look that good again. I know that in Houston, I'm not sure the specifics of the turf there, but I know, for example, in New Jersey, the Meadowlands, which is hosting the World Cup final, that has famously, or should I say infamously, some of the worst turf on planet Earth. It's always getting torn up. Players are complaining about it. But for the World Cup, they're bringing in these, specialty trays of basically very, very advanced planters for this grass that are going to be there just for the World Cup and get taken away at the end of it. So yeah, enjoy it while it lasts is my advice for for fans.
Definitely. And you mentioned the pitch. One, what is the pitch for those who this is their first time? And then also, based on your research, what goes into making a perfect pitch for an event like this? And why should we care?
Yeah, the pitch is just a fancy word for field. As I mentioned, all the effort that goes into this, grass, this big sort of expansive grass is interesting too, because the soccer pitch is probably the plainest of all sports fields. There are so few markings. The last new marking to be included on a pitch was, I think, in the 30s, and that's a kind of half circle at the edge of the box. Other than that, it's symmetrical, it's empty. I think it's beautiful. In the book, I speak to architects and landscape architects as well, just to talk about simplicity and beauty and symmetry, and sort of making a stage for these athletes with as little sort of distractions as possible.
A lot of the, I guess, critiques of soccer are that, it's slow or it's low scoring, but your book pushes back on that. What's actually happening in those quieter moments that people aren't seeing?
Yeah, pushes back, but also I have to concede that a lot of the criticisms are true. The game does contain fewer scoring opportunities, or fewer instances of scoring than most games we're used to. And the repercussions of this are massive. I mean, because a game is expected to have maybe 3 total goals on average, there's a lot of room for variance. I spoke with a former NASA scientist, who actually he didn't love soccer that much himself. He's a British guy, and he was getting in like a little bit of an argument with some coworkers about the World Cup, and he said, "Why do you care so much? The games are pretty much random because there's so few goals. The result does not accurately represent whether or not the better team won." And he did the work on this. He did a peer-reviewed study and basically proved that, yeah, the results are more random than you'd like. In a game that's, decided by a 1-0 scoreline, 1-0 scoreline, that one goal could have come from a mistake that a player made that will never make again in his or her life, and that's the reason they're out of the World Cup. So the question that he sort of had to confront after doing all this work was, yeah, maybe it's the results are random, but isn't there more to the game than just the results? And that's what I think is so beautiful about soccer is each game is this little story, and so much happens, and the better team often does not win, and that's such a a human and fitting thing. It's not a game for people who are on spreadsheets and want to figure out every little data point to make sure everything goes the way they want it. It's messy. It's convoluted. It can be unfair. And that's just like life. And the fact that it still manages to entertain and fascinate is a testament to just the good, simple design and the brilliance of the people who play it.
Another comparison that you make to soccer are music and choreography. When fans are watching a match in Houston, what patterns or movements should they look for that might change how they experience the game?
Yeah, there's so much to enjoy, whether you're watching in person or at home. If you're watching in person, just to see the foot control of someone who is able to corral a pass 60 yards in the air with their instep and have it just stick like glue to their foot. And it's something in the book. I talked to a paleoanthropologist who's a podiatrist, and he tells me all about the evolution of the foot and the fact that our feet are basically meant just for walking, running, sometimes climbing. Kicking that was never a reason. Our feet aren't meant to kick. It's a learned movement. It's an unnatural movement, he calls it. And yet, the game revolves all around this unnatural movement and the amazing things people can do with it. I feel like you can watch just the shapes and the patterns emerging on the field, the teamwork. Players will know exactly where one another is without even looking at them, or if they do, it's a very quick glance. And my favorite thing too is sometimes is the kind of passes that aren't to someone, but to someone to where someone should be or where they will be. The same sort of science that's used for space travel, because the Earth and the Moon, for example, aren't stationary objects. Are constantly careening through space, just as two players are going to be moving, and they're going to be where they are now is not the same as where they're going to be in 2 seconds. And so the passes have to be shaped and made to fit those exact sort of parameters. And I just think it's fascinating and inspiring to watch people do this, especially as someone who is not very good at soccer and has never been good at soccer. Maybe I have more appreciation than most, just because I know how hard it is, and I know how awful it can look if it goes wrong.
You write about how Americans kind of have this unique relationship with soccer. With the World Cup coming here, do you think that changes? What should Americans and Houston fans embrace about their perspective?
It's so funny because soccer obviously is not our biggest sport, and it's American fandom is growing, but I look at it just how much it's grown. And you compare it to the 1994 World Cup, which was also in the U.S. and that when that was launching, that was very much okay, we're introducing people to soccer. That's the goal. We're going to try to get a foothold in the U.S. and it worked. I mean, you go to any school, any park, in the country now, and there'll be kids wearing jerseys of teams from all over the world. So I think soccer in the U.S. is in a good place, and this World Cup will only, I think, make that better, hopefully, just because it's introducing more people to the wonderful game. And while there's so much going on politically, and for example, how much FIFA is charging for the tickets, which frankly is criminal, bad stuff. But the game itself endures because it's simple and beautiful, and I think people who don't appreciate that will be treated to something that I hope and I think they might fall in love with.
Okay, let's say someone goes to their first World Cup match here in Houston. Maybe they got swept up in the excitement. What's one thing you would tell them to focus on so they walk away hooked on the sport?
That's a great question. I'd say pick one player for 5 minutes and just watch what they do. On average, a soccer match, which is 90 minutes, a player will have the ball 3 minutes on average. So for 87 plus minutes, they don't have the ball. Pick one of the players, anyone, maybe one that's, seems interesting or has a cool haircut, doesn't matter. Any player, and then watch them for 5 minutes and see what they do. And you're going to learn so much just about a game that, has to resist gravity, as it were, because the ball is the gravitational force. But effective soccer is played when the other players go out into space, venture out, and sort of have to resist that gravitational pull. So I think it's an interesting little exercise for 5 minutes just to check out what one player is doing, and then you can zoom out, see everyone together, and see how that plays into the collective work of the team itself.
When the World Cup comes here next month and people are watching from the stands or their living rooms, what's the one idea from your book you hope sticks with them?
That soccer's popularity is not a given. That throughout its history, there have been times when the game was going to look like it was withering. Popularity was plummeting. That soccer, like all group activities and enterprises, requires stewardship. It requires decision making, and that the game you're watching right now won't look like a game probably in 10 or 15 years from now. And there's reasons for that. It's because people are actively changing the way it's played for various reasons. But just know that this is, while a seemingly ancient game, that's not the case. It's relatively new, and its popularity, while there are many reasons for it, should not be taken for granted.
Nick Greene is the author of How to Watch Soccer Like a Genius. He spoke with Houston Matters producer Laura Walker. Just ahead, more unexpected insights into soccer in an all-World Cup edition of The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, as Houston Matters continues on News 88.7 and YouTube.
On last week's Wait.
It's not just your car. It's the one that brought your kids home from school, took you cross-country, held memories, laughter, even a few breakdowns. When it's time to let go, give your car a new purpose. Donate it and turn memories into meaningful support for this station. Plus, you'll enjoy free and easy pickup, potential tax benefits, and a simple donation process. Your gift supports the programs you and your family love. Donate today and help keep public media strong. Call or donate online.
Want to binge All Creatures Great and Small? Catch up on Nova or revisit Ken Burns documentaries? You can with PBS Passport. With a gift of $5 or more per month to Houston Public Media, you'll get access to PBS Passport that lets you watch your favorite programs anytime you want. Support the programs you love and enjoy them on your own schedule with PBS Passport. Make your gift now at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate.
A lot can happen in a week. Some of it good, some of it bad, some of it downright ugly. When faced with intriguing developments in the week's news, we turn to a rotating panel of non-experts to parse the good, the bad, and the ugly of it all. On today's panel, Mustafa Tamiz, media and public affairs consultant and the CEO of Outreach Strategists, Vivian Ho, health economist at Rice University and Baylor College of Medicine, and Natalie Arsenault, president of Arsenault International Consulting. Mustafa, Vivian, Natalie, welcome to Houston Matters.
Howdy. Thanks, Craig.
Good to be back.
Panel, it's an all-World Cup edition today. We begin with the news this week that Texas Attorney General and GOP Senate candidate Ken Paxton has opened an investigation into FIFA over its ticketing process. As the Texas newsroom's Lucio Vasquez reported Tuesday, Paxton announced he's looking into allegations FIFA misled some soccer fans over the quality of seats they've purchased. Texas joins New York, New Jersey, and California as officials in those states look into post-purchase seat location changes, as well as dynamic pricing and escalating ticket costs that far exceed past tournaments. FIFA says it's just adjusting to the North American market. Others allege it's the body that runs this tournament that they're price gouging. Some tickets are even being sold in the tens of thousands, and even the cheapest seats have priced out most fans. Of course, the Fan Fest east of downtown is free. Texas joins the states investigating FIFA over its ticketing policies as the World Cup begins here in Houston. Is this good, bad, or ugly, Mustafa?
Ugly! Look, just as you were speaking, we've been looking at you going like, yeah, they're increasing the price because they're in the U.S., right? Like that's the whole element of this. And the one thing that I didn't understand is that the host cities and countries don't get any of the ticket fees. FIFA keeps all of it, right? And they've been doing that for the last several years. So, and if you look at their stuff, it's kind of like we do it because it's a global event and we're trying to manage the experience of the FIFA goers. Well, the experience has not been good in that matter, that you're increasing the pricing based on the geography that you're at. And I don't think that's fair because it's a global audience, people coming from everywhere. So that aside, I am excited about the games coming to town. There is a sense of a fun, and I think it's good for Houston in many ways. I don't think the numbers that are always projected in these things ever come true, right? There's always a hype about like what it'll do for the for the city. But we have hosted a lot of big games. We're becoming one of those meccas for sports. And I think that that's a cool thing for us to have as a city.
So at least when it comes to the games themselves, you are breathless with anticipation. Patient. Good, bad, or ugly, Vivian?
Yeah, this is pretty ugly. And, it's, as Mustafa said, it's super exciting. The U.S.-Mexico Center at the Baker Institute, they threw a terrific watch party yesterday. So I enjoyed that part. But FIFA is a monopoly, and they are engaging in price discrimination as well. So, and it's highly disturbing that the fact that the last round of the World Cup was in Qatar, and it was pretty clear that Qatar had bribed them, and that money is supposed to go towards promoting soccer and helping organizations that want to promote the game, and it just seems to go to their own pockets of the officials instead. So in a way, it is good that Ken Paxton is going after them. But in the article and the statement from their office, it's because the premium ticket holders are not getting access to the best seats in the stadium with the best views. And I'm kind of like, when is the Attorney General going to press a case that's going to benefit all Texans? And, because we've got plenty of problems with monopoly and a questionable behavior that affects the average Texan. And if that's not their priority, when is it going to happen?
Okay, good, bad, or ugly, Natalie?
So I don't know if it's ugly, as we've all said. But I will say this. The first thing that came to mind when I saw the story, I was like, Texas, California, and New York. I was like, when does that trifecta ever happen? And I was like, wow, that's impressive and interesting.
And it certainly has to do with where the games are being played.
Well, yes,
obviously.
but I mean, Texas isn't usually too fond of hopping on anything that California or New York is doing. So I'm impressed that we even paid attention to it and didn't just say no because they're doing it. But look, the game 3 of the NBA Finals, cheapest seat was $11,000, most expensive seat was $110,000.
Wow.
It's part of the process of the games, of any game, right? Of any massive competition. And that's not even, I guess you could argue the NBA is global. They would say they were, but we don't really have a world championship for NBA or NFL or anything like that. So when you start talking about playing on the world stage, the whole notion of like dynamic pricing that seems, targeted to specific groups, may seem unfair and unequitable to those in different socioeconomic classes. I mean, that is just kind of par for the course of the games. And also, we're a capitalistic society. So
I want Natalie's tickets because she's got tickets. She's got money.
So, now to Vivian's point, should our government be going after FIFA, or are there more pertinent things in Texas where we have monopolies that are happening that we might want to pay attention to? That, is a different.
I have a question for Vivian. Like, is healthcare monopolies more like worse versus FIFA, or is FIFA worse than the healthcare monopolies?
Oh, well, interesting comparison. So I think the hospital consolidation is actually worse in terms of the damage that it's causing and the amount of money that's been being taken out of the pockets of your average citizen, because you don't have to buy a soccer ticket, correct, right? But if you get sick, you have to have that health care. And the problem is the prices for inpatient care being charged by hospitals, they're making massive profits. So that's a good point.
When you're below FIFA, that's bad. That's ugly.
Panel, one last-second tweak had to be made Wednesday before the opening of the FIFA World Cup Fan Fest in Edo. Apparently, a display read, "Welcome to Houston," right next to what appeared to be the official flag of not Texas, but the country of Chile. KHOU reported a viewer reached out after seeing it at a FanFest preview event. FIFA wound up taking the sign down. It is perhaps a somewhat forgivable mistake. The flags are very similar. Same color scheme, same white star, but the Chilean flag star is located in the upper left amid a small blue square and sports a larger red stripe covering the entire bottom half, while the Texas flag's blue is a vertical stripe down the left side with the white star in the center and a smaller red stripe along the bottom to its right. Welcome to Chile. Texas. Whoops. Is this good, bad, or ugly? Vivian?
Well, I actually think it was good. I'm really impressed that someone noticed it so quickly. I'm so embarrassed. I lived in Houston, in Texas for more than 20 years. I would have made the same mistake. The flags are similar. And, and it's not even like I know if you ask me, what does the flag of Chile look like? So good that someone noticed it and they got it corrected quickly.
All right. Good, bad, or ugly? Natalie Arsenault.
Yeah, I agree on that note. That good. Somebody noticed it, yes, because the flags are quite similar, and I'm a native-born Texan. Again, it's FIFA, and it's their event. If they want to wave the New Zealand flag, I'm like, what are we talking about here? People it's their event. Whether. Yes, I would love for a Texas flag to fly, but it's also not our event necessarily.
The suggestion was made on the socials, maybe they intended to display the flag of Chile as one of the participants, except Chile's not participating.
Yeah, well, yes, that's true. But they might just have an affinity for Chile. It's a beautiful country.
Okay, good, bad, or ugly, Mustafa?
We've all been to, Latin America, South America, and you come back, you're a little disoriented. So it's red, white, and confused, right? So the flags are red, white, and confused, and that's okay. I think I think things like this happen. What's the nice part about it, though, is that there's the fun element of this thing. I think you're seeing a little bit of fun stories, fun things coming out in town as FIFA happens. So I would just say, for all of us, as we begin to endure this crazy traffic, this really hot weather with lots of new people coming into town, right? That you take a little bit of fun. Pretend like you're New Yorkers and the Knicks are winning.
Okay, I don't know if we want to get into the NBA of it all. Panel, World Cup games in Houston and Dallas as well are bringing both domestic and international travelers to Texas, as Mustafa just suggested. And while they're here, they may want to sample the best of what the Lone Star State has to offer. That is why, starting next week and continuing for a month on non-game days, Trinity Metro Cowtown visitor shuttles will provide rides from Fort Worth's Central Station and some downtown stops in Fort Worth to some true cultural touchstones. I speak of Six Flags, the Fort Worth Zoo, an outlet mall, and, yeah, of course, Buc-ee's. In a statement, Visit Fort Worth President and CEO Mitch Whitten says his city, quote, offers visitors an experience distinct from any other city in the region. I don't know how far he extends the definition of region, but a zoo, a mall, a theme park, and a giant gas station selling brisket in Texas is not that distinctive. Nevertheless, as the Cron's Chase and Gordon reported this week, that's where shuttles are headed every half hour on non-game days. Is this good, bad, or ugly, Natalie?
I mean, I think it's good that folks are coming in from all over the world, and they are going to get exposed to some, Buc-ee's arguably is a very Texas thing. Many people come here and want to see it, and they're amazed by, just the one in Katy has the longest car wash, I think, in the country or something crazy like that. So, I mean, I think, could there be other more memorable things that were added that were more historical in context? Probably. Also, there are some better barbecue stops to go to than Buc-ee's, probably. But, again, I think it's just the novelty of it all. And, when you're from another place and you're trying to figure out where to go, it kind of helps for someone to curate some of your experiences a bit. So, it's good, I suppose. Maybe.
All right. Good, bad, or ugly, Mustafa?
It's Fort Worth. What do they have? Let's be real. We've all been to Fort Worth and gone, what are we doing here?
They got the stockyards.
Look, I think there's a friend of mine that Buc-ee's given opportunity as they were growing, and he's done just really great with them. So I have a soft spot for Buc-ee's for that. Other than that, I remember growing up in New York, and every time somebody came to our house visiting, we had to go to the Empire State Building, and we had to go to the Statue of Liberty, and a lot of times we had to drive all the way to see the Niagara Falls. Right? It was just kind of like, and after a while, as a kid, it was just like, here we go again. We're going to Empire State Building, and here we go again. And it was just like nonstop of like people coming, visiting from overseas, and we're taking them to these same places over and over again. I just can't imagine some child that lives in Fort Worth that has to keep going to Buc-ee's because his parents get visitors and they keep driving to Buc-ee's just to show them. Had a pretty good childhood, I think.
All right. Good, bad, or ugly, Vivian?
Yeah, it's pretty ugly. I mean, I love Buc-ee's, but it's the idea you go on the road trip and you get to stop at Buc-ee's. It's not Buc-ee's as a destination. And I understand if you have a bunch of Europeans visiting, it's not like you want to tell them to go to our museums because Europe has just way better museums than we do. But I don't know, Great Wolf Lodge, like they don't have water parks like we have in Texas. Maybe they could do that instead.
I kind of wonder if maybe they were saying, yes, we're making all this available and pitching it as this is on non-game days, here's what international travelers can do. But in reality, what they're saying is this is a service that's available to anybody that's in Fort Worth. And maybe our residents just want to ride to the outlet mall.
That, and I would have also thought H-E-B or Central Market as I mean.
Fair point. Yeah. Other options. Mustafa Tamiz is a media and public affairs consultant, CEO of Outreach Strategist. Vivian Ho is a health economist at Rice and Baylor College of Medicine. Natalie Arsenault is president of Arsenault International Consulting. Thank you all very much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Craig.
My name is Benjamin Bloom. I'm a veteran, and I have gotten the chance to study abroad 7 times, traveling to about 19 countries. I joined the Army in 2010 and then I got out and got to come back to school. I wanted to study abroad because it gave me a chance to go exploring on a more free aspect than I did in the military. And then being a veteran, we get tuition fees paid for. So really the only fees that I had to worry about were like flights over there. So my first study abroad was in Germany. On my way there, I went to Sweden for a few days, and then I got to go to Prague and Amsterdam. And then my second study abroad was to Australia. The next study abroad was my first long one. That was in Switzerland. We went to Malta and Italy and France. Saw a chateau and some castles. On my way back from Switzerland, I went up to Norway. And then after that, I went to Iceland for about a week. And I got to drive around the country, see some black sand beaches, some of the Game of Thrones filming locations. Brought out my inner nerd, and I went with the economics group to Tokyo. We were there for 3.5 weeks. I went to England for a week and a half, went to the Harry Potter studios, and then I went up to Scotland for 3 or 4 days, and then I took a boat over to Belfast and then Dublin after that. Then my latest one was in New Zealand. On my way back from that, I got to go to Fiji, Australia, and Tasmania. It kept my mind busy for the most part. Being a veteran, sometimes we get in our own head, being stuck in a place for a long time. So this really helped me get out of my own head and go on an adventure, I guess. My name is Benjamin Bloom, and you're listening to Houston Matters with Craig Cohen.
We know you value Houston Public Media. That's why you're watching right now. So take the next step and become a new member of the station you rely on. Every gift makes a difference. And what matters most right now is supporting the station that brings you the news and information you rely on. It only takes a minute to make a big difference. So join as a new member today at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate or call 800-364-8300.
With a 2026-27 season of Broadway musicals at the Hobby Center. Subscription packages for 3 or more shows are available. Information at tuts.org.
We get support from members like you and from Texas Mutual Insurance Company, workers' compensation provider, committed to helping Texas communities and emphasizing safety. More texasmutual.com/TexansGetIt.
One discipline explores how the brain works. The other mines the brain for creativity. And Dr. Raymond Cho does them both. He's a professor of psychiatry at Baylor College of Medicine and founder of the Houston Mind and Brain Psychiatric Clinic. He is also a composer and pianist and a composing fellow at the Texas New Music Ensemble's 2026 New Music Festival in Mexico City starting today. That is where he joins us from now. Dr. Cho, welcome to Houston Matters. Good morning.
Hi, good morning. Yeah, appreciate the opportunity to join you this morning.
Absolutely. Do you see connections between your work as a psychiatrist and creative expression like writing music? Does one inform the other?
Yes, definitely. I think the common overarching framework, I'll use a somewhat highfalutin phrase, what I like to call dimensionality expansion. And by that I mean being able to create a rich and flexible large space that you can have agency with freedom. And in the realm of mental illness, we see examples where whether it be a psychotic disorder or depression or ADHD or severe trauma, that can limit the size of that space because you're so confined by dealing with whatever sort of mental illness issues that you're dealing with. So the goal of my work in psychiatry and in many years of research in that space was to try to help individuals suffering from mental illness to expand their worlds after struggling with mental illness and having that world constricted by that. I think on the musical side, I'm not going to say anything new if I say that music obviously can be very enriching in and of itself, but with my penchant for music from a very early age, I think I really like the idea that, one can take some very simple ideas and within the musical space expand them in very interesting and edifying and emotionally gratifying ways. I think the idea that one can expand one's world in one space that one lives in, whether it be life in general or in the musical space, is very motivating and enticing to me.
How would you describe your music? Any particular inspirations?
Yes, so I think I like fusion of different styles, and I'd say probably the biggest influences are classical and jazz. And I was a big prog rock fan growing up, so there's definitely some of that in my music. I think the whole fusion sort of bias comes from that idea of dimensional expansion, expanding one's world. So I find it somewhat pigeonholing to be confined to just one particular style. And to me, the worlds of classical music and contemporary classical music, as well as jazz and, as I said, prog rock, the fusion of all of these different worlds is very enriching. And I guess what I like to write is influence and sort of an amalgam of all those influences.
So maybe to put it simply, in order to be an effective composer and to be an effective psychiatrist, you need to be open-minded, right?
Yes, yeah, definitely. I think what's really nice about all these different sort of disciplines, whether it be psychiatric practice itself or clinical research and basic cognitive research that I engaged in for many years, as well as in the musical pursuits, there's always a process of generating new ideas, just asking the basic question, what if? So if you have a patient that you're trying to help out, obviously you come to the table with some expertise and knowledge and years of training, but you're also actively thinking, well, how do you understand the patient in front of you, and how do you formulate a treatment plan that's very specific to their particular situation and needs? And so the what if can lead to a differential diagnosis as to what's going on with their situation. The what if can lead to sometimes what's necessary to come up with a very creative treatment plan that's tailored individually to that person. And in the musical space, that open-minded what if can ask questions about what if you combined influences from classical and jazz? What would that look like? If you brought in prog rock influences, what would that look like, etc. So, I think that having an open mind is definitely very critical in both those spaces.
Houstonian Dr. Raymond Cho is in Mexico City right now. He is a composing fellow at the Texas New Music Ensemble's 2026 New Music Festival. He's a composer and pianist, and as we've been discussing, he's also a psychiatrist. He is founder of the Houston Mind and Brain Psychiatric Clinic and is a professor of psychiatry at Baylor College of Medicine. Dr. Cho, hope you enjoy your time in Mexico City. Thanks very much for joining us. We appreciate the time.
All right. Appreciate it. Thank you.
And that will do it for today's show. The Houston Matters team includes Michael Haggerty, Joshua Zinn, Brenda Valdivia, Mincho Jacob, and Laura Walker. Jared Carroll's our technical director. Remember, you can check out Houston Matters anytime. Subscribe to our podcast for the audio or visit Houston Public Media's YouTube channel for the video. On Monday's show, Laura Walker will talk with historian Blair L.M. Kelly about the origins of emancipation celebrations and why the upcoming holiday of Juneteenth has endured. Also, we welcome your dog and cat care questions for Houston area veterinarian Dr. Lori Teller. You can send those now or through the weekend if you'd like to talk@houstonmatters.org. And what new record contracts across pro sports suggest about the fight between baseball owners and players over a salary cap, a fight which could mean no Astros games for some or all of next season. I'm Craig Cohen. Have a great weekend, then join us Monday for those and other Houston Matters.
Support comes from Pearland, a community dedicated to growing innovative businesses and